Story 1. Really silly, but Moana. I am a female sailor who started at the bottom, so it means a lot to me to be honest. Story 2. What dreams may come. I had to deal with a lot of loss in my life, and I always thought that the movie offered a beautiful concept of the afterlife. Story 3. The Lord of the Rings has an amazing storyline, a stellar soundtrack, and stunning acting with attention to detail. I connect with many of the characters, but that isn't why I enjoy it. I watch it whenever I'm feeling sad, and although it contains devastating moments, it conveys the message that everything can improve. I love it. Story 4. I still remember how we were playing outside with my friends, and we imagined that we were in the setting of The Lord of the Rings. Story 5. The main actors look so similar to some of my friends, and I think of them every time I watch it. Story 6. Thelma and Louise. My best friend and I watched it repeatedly for an entire summer and then once a year. She passed away 16 years ago, and I haven't been able to watch it since. Story 7. Requiem for a Dream. That scene with the mother and the doctor hits hard. I went through almost the exact same thing, and it haunts me every time I rewatch it. The whole movie does, honestly. It is painfully realistic, like a fever dream, and it mirrors a lot of what I experienced while battling addiction. Story 8. For me, it's Brother Bear. I watched it a dozen times when I was a child and a dozen times since I've become an adult. It still makes me weep every time I watch it. Story 9. The holiday theme of suicide and stepping away from life provides a different perspective. It always gives me a strong sense of hope. Story 10. Casablanca was showing on television the night my daughter was born, and it was the first movie we ever watched together. Story 11. The Shawshank Redemption. I used to watch it often. I felt imprisoned in every way except the actual one, being confined in a bedroom with no hope for myself, as well as in a mental prison. One day, it was the right time, and I was freed like a bird by a loving man. He is like a saint for putting up with me and taking care of me. Story 12. I haven't seen my two grandfathers while growing up. I never knew what life was like with a grandpa. That's why I love my upbringing. Story 13. The Iron Giant. I watched it a lot as a child and recently saw it again now that I'm older. I still get teary-eyed at the end. Story 14. Jurassic Park. I spent that summer begging to be taken to the cinema to see it, but I never was. I had the bed sheets, the stationery, the comic books, you name it. For whatever reason, my parents just would not take me to see the movie. Near the very end of its run in the cinemas, I finally got to see it when we visited family friends whose kids were going to the local cinema to see it. I was allowed to go with them. It was worth the wait. Luckily, there was no social media or internet as we know it now to spoil it for me as I waited. Story 15. Toy Story 3. The first movie I took my son to as a toddler was Toy Story. The third installment was released when he was in high school. The entire arc of Andy growing up resonated deeply with me. I know everyone cries at the end. I cried throughout the entire movie. Story 16. I first watched it over 20 years ago, but in retrospect, Koyaanisqatsi shaped much of how I see and understand the world today. Story 17. Stand By Me. I have very little in common with the daily lives of the main characters, but my childhood friends and I experienced similar emotional growth due to our own situations, such as comparisons to siblings, encounters with bullies, and fistfights that ended in a handshake. These were typical early teenage experiences. I found it easy to relate to Gordy. Story 18. Constantine was the film my school friends and I bonded over when I didn't have many friends. That film will always have a place in my heart. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets was the film that sparked my love for Harry Potter and helped me become comfortable with myself. Story 19. Easy Rider. The Road I Didn't Take. Ditto Almost Famous. I have a wonderful life now, but I can't sit through either of those movies without wondering what it would have been like had I just hit the open road as soon as I graduated from high school. Story 20. Steel Magnolias. The scene with Sally, Olympia, and Shirley after the funeral had us crying like babies and suddenly shifted to evoke gut laughter. Story 21. It's silly because I am a grown woman, but Shrek makes me happy for whatever reason, and I can always count on it to cheer me up. Story 22. I always loved Hook as a kid and just watched it for the first time in many years. I was surprised at how moved I was by Peter's rediscovery of himself. When he cuts the coconut in half and drops the sword, almost in fear, there is a sense that he had unknowingly forgotten the person he had told himself he was, and in that moment, he came back to the person he had always truly been. I felt a deep connection to the whimsy and theme of self-discovery. Story 23. Carrie on Camping. My granddad and I used to watch Carrie on films together when I was a child. I will always associate them with him. He has dementia now. Story 24. Dazed and Confused. My friends and I used to skip school at 15, get high, and watch this weekly. Great days. Story 25. Moulin Rouge. I cried the first time I saw it in theaters when I was 18 years old. The way they find out she is sick at the end is just crushing. Story 26. Someone else mentioned this as well. For me, it was The Notebook. I remember seeing it alone at the theater. I had been married to a man for about a decade who wasn't a bad person, per se. However, I didn't feel like I was his person, and he didn't feel like mine. That movie made me cry and triggered a lot of soul searching. We divorced about a year later. Story 27. Ever After. A Cinderella Story. The Secret of Nim, Titanic, Pride and Prejudice, and Sense and Sensibility. Story 28. I have a few movies that I feel emotionally connected to in different ways. Look Who's Talking is a film I have watched many times since I was young. It is nostalgic, and I love the cozy way it was filmed. It approaches life from a simplistic perspective, which I enjoy. In Equilibrium, I often wondered what an emotionless world would be like. For a long time, I thought it might be best, but this movie showed me the other side of things. Of course, it is fiction, but it presents a good concept. Mr. Nobody is a movie that awakens the philosopher in me and makes me ponder existentialism. Now and Then is a film I have seen a few times and feels like a fitting coming-of-age story. It touches on numerous topics from various angles, which I enjoyed. Back to the Future is my absolute favorite, and I always savor it. It is a nostalgic and happy movie for me. He's Just Not That Into You is a film that I found solace in during times when I thought I wouldn't find someone suitable for myself. Only You is a movie I appreciated for the way it showcases the paradox of fate versus creating your own destiny, questioning whether it is not fate that ultimately shaped your path. I genuinely like older movies because they were filmed differently. There are many others that I love and connect to, but I would say these are the ones that resonate with me the most. Story 29. Shawshank. Major League. Die Hard. Back to the Future. Super 8. Stand By Me. A Quiet Place 2. Coco. I am sure there are more. I love movies and the theatrical experience. These films are tied to experiences that had a tremendous impact on me. Story 30. Risky Business. The Tangerine Dream soundtrack really captures the feeling of late-night longing and solitude. It is my favorite film, and I will never forget how much it amazed me when I first watched it. Story 31. As Good as It Gets is a notable film that depicts obsessive-compulsive disorder in a way that resonates with our current understanding. I first watched that movie and recognized the importance of being accountable for my behavior, regardless of my feelings. I was diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder 20 years later. What Dreams May Come is another noteworthy film. Story 32. Pet Sematary. I had seen it countless times, but then I decided to watch it in the hospital after pushing a little blonde toddler out of the path of a car, which hit me instead. I cried for hours, and I still feel emotional now when I watch it or read the book. Story 33. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I watched this when I was feeling depressed and emotionally vulnerable. I was seeking genuine connection and constantly wondering what love should look like. I don't know. Story 34. Hoosiers and Rudy. I'm really into sports, and I also lived in Indiana. There's something magical about sports in Indiana. Story 35. When you look past the unsimulated sex gimmick, Love, 2015, offers a profound exploration of relationships. I have been fortunate in love throughout my life, experiencing many diverse relationships. The film portrays relationships in a realistic and intense manner. I was enduring the most painful breakup of my life when I first saw the movie. Although the circumstances were very different from the painful ones depicted, it mirrored the good aspects of that particular relationship. The intimacy and emotional connection were remarkably accurate. Story 36. As common as the answer may be, it is The Lord of the Rings, the entire trilogy. These movies have been with me since I was a teenager, and I still tear up while watching them. Keep in mind, I am a huge Tolkien fan, having read all of his works during my teenage years. I often go to bed and listen to audiobooks to fall asleep. 90% of the time, those audiobooks are from Tolkien's writings, and the other 10% is Dunk and Egg by George R. Martin. So yes, it may be a boring answer, but I truly mean it. Story 37, White Chicks. I know every line of that film. I snuck into my older brother's room when I was about 8. I had watched all my DVDs and found it. I took it to my room and remember thinking, I don't know what half of this is, but it's hilarious. It was the extended version, not the rated 12 you see on Netflix. As I've gotten older, I'm 26 now. I watch it periodically, and each time at different ages, I understand a bit more. Now, as an adult, I find it absolutely hilarious that I told my primary school teacher that it was my favorite movie, and she called my parents in for a talk about child-appropriate movies. My mother was mortified, and I honestly didn't understand the big deal until I was about 14. Story 38. Alice in Wonderland is a Disney film. I watched it 3 times a day to escape into that world. It was so much fun. Story 39. Watership Down. I believe there is a deep emotional trauma alongside the emotional connection, but I truly love it. Story 40. Kung Fu Panda 2 felt surreal yet enjoyable to revisit as an adult. I love the blend of 3D animation with the occasional paper art flashback scenes. I believe those flashbacks left a lasting impression on me as a child. Story 41. Spirited Away. It's a really good comfort movie for me, and I like to watch it when I feel anxious or a panic attack coming. I still wonder how it received a rating of 0, suitable for everyone, in my country. Story 42. Magnolia came out exactly when I needed it to during my timeline. I have been afraid to rewatch it over the last 20 years because I do not want to tarnish the original feelings that changed inside of me from those days. Story 43. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Something about the mix of adventure and introspection, along with the feeling of breaking out of routine, really resonates with me during times when I need it. It still gives me chills every time I rewatch it. Story 44. Aliens. The first movie my biological mother and I ever watched together. At the time, I had no idea that she was my biological mother. We enjoyed the movie together, and it felt truly special. She had me when she was 14, and we watched this film together in the late 1980s or early 1990s, but I still remember it clearly. Story 45. The Sex and the City movie. I went to see it with my sister and was moved by the story. It is my go-to movie when I am sad or need to feel close to her, so I will put it on. Story 46. I watched 50-50 with my mom when she was undergoing chemotherapy. I had seen it first and cried like a baby, but watching it together was very powerful. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is such a talented actor. Story 47. Cold Turkey, 1971, is a decent movie from All in the Family Norman Lear. It was filmed in my hometown. My parents, grandparents, and some classmates appear in crowd scenes. I am a blur in the background in one of the scenes. It was a fun experience for my hometown. Story 48. The Motorcycle Diaries. If you had told 20-year-old me that I would be so invested in a film about Che Guevara, I would have said you were out of your mind. Story 49. I am the oldest of 4 siblings. In 2010, when I was 10, we lost one of my middle sisters. During that time, they added Ponyo to Netflix. I was always a big Studio Ghibli fan, with Spirited Away being my favorite for most of my life, so I figured Ponyo would be a good movie for my sisters and me to relax to. For a week during our grieving period, the 3 of us would wake up, settle in our spots in the living room, and watch Ponyo on repeat all day. I have not watched it in its entirety since then. About 5 years ago, I told my fiancée about it, and we tried to sit down and watch it together when many Ghibli movies were added to Max. As soon as the opening credits started, I began uncontrollably sobbing, so we stopped the movie. It is being re-released in my local theater this year, so we are considering going to see it. Story 50. I feel that, as an autistic person, I really connect with the movie Artificial Intelligence. It's quite a sad film that always brings me to tears. I can truly relate to the robotic boy in it. Ironically, I only watch the film very rarely. I wouldn't watch it all the time despite its significance. Story 51. Rowan Atkinson has brought so much laughter to my life, and the world is a better place with Mr. Bean. Story 52. The Art of Racing in the Rain. I lost my dog last year. The relationship between the main character and his dog reminded me a lot of my own bond with my dog. Story 53. The original Star Wars trilogy. I watch it every year around May 4th to honor my uncle who passed away from lung cancer. We used to watch it every year and have a marathon. I miss you, Jimmy. Story 54. The Ringer is a lighthearted movie, but my son and I watched it while he was in the hospital fighting leukemia. It was the last movie we shared together. Story 55. Raising Arizona. I saw it when I was 7. I didn't understand the ending and broke down crying. I understand it now, but it still makes me cry. Story 56. James Bond Skyfall. A blend of patriotism, absolute professionalism, and traditional values. Story 57. Dunkirk. My granddad was a Fleet Air Arm pilot in the war and spent some time there. That ending sequence of the plane running out of fuel and gliding onto the beach always makes me think of him. Story 58. In 1977, Star Wars was released. I was 7 years old at the time, and it had a significant impact on me. Story 59. For the love of the game, my favorite Costner movie has a great soundtrack and story. As I get older and reflect on my mistakes and choices, it resonates with me more every year. I dislike how much I can relate to it. What Dreams May Come is another great film. Story 60. Star Trek. Insurrection. It was the last movie my mother and I attended in theaters before our relationship deteriorated. Story 61. For me, it's The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Something about that quiet yearning to break free from routine and actually live resonates deeply with me. It still reminds me to take chances, even small ones. Story 62. This movie made me sad and also glad to see how the Joker became who he is. I believe villains are made, not born. Story 63. I Am Sam. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Memoirs of a Geisha. Bunnes Labyrinth. My Sister's Keeper. Story 64. Asteroid City. Wes Anderson. I experience depressive states, and this movie is the only digital media that can fully take me and my pain away. I have watched it so many times that I couldn't count, sometimes on loop, just to escape the crushing void. Story 65. Twin Peaks. Fire Walk with Me. Cheryl Lee's visceral, powerful performance as Laura Palmer will always resonate with me. If I could tell her thank you for saving my life repeatedly, I would probably burst into tears and babble incoherently. Story 66. About Time. The impact that the movie had on me was completely unexpected, especially because it wasn't the film I thought it would be. No one ever discusses it, either. I feel like I'm the only one connected to it. Story 67. Disturbia, 2007, with Shia LaBeouf. I was 12 or 13 years old when my dad passed away a year prior, and that movie really touched me. Looking back, the plot seems silly, but the fact that he was going through similar experiences resonated with me. I still watch it once a year. Story 68. A Silent Voice. As much as it is difficult to admit, I really connect with the person who bullies the deaf girl. I was never as extreme as he was, but I still did a lot of regrettable things in school. Eventually, he improves, and I relate to that as well. He disconnects from the world and just wants to make amends for the wrongs he has done to others. Story 69. I watched Soul not long after my first child was born, and the sense of responsibility truly hit me at the end of the movie. I haven't watched it since. Story 70, Transformers, yes, the Michael Bay film. The night it came out, my father and I went to see it in theaters at midnight. He was a big fan of Transformers when I was young, as some episodes of the cartoon were written by Michael Straczynski, who is most well known for creating Babylon 5, his all-time favorite show. But back to the story. The opening scene with the unidentified helicopter and the military base is simply amazing, hands down one of my favorite memories of my dad. Fortunately, he is still around and hopefully will be for many more years, but I will cherish this memory forever. Story 71. Lego Batman is a movie I watched many times with my children, and we all enjoyed it together while laughing a lot. Silly, I know. Story 72. A Walk to Remember. 10 years ago, we were in high school in the media room watching a movie. I remember walking out of that media room stunned and singing Only Hope, feeling the heartbreak for the main lead and her parents. After 10 years, my best friend has passed from the same illness. The only difference is that she married the love of her life and built a family of her own. Story 73. Synecdoche, New York. I was feeling really down when I watched it, and it saved me. Also, Donnie Darko and The Lord of the Rings. Story 74. Coal Miner's Daughter aired frequently on HBO when I was 10 and home with chickenpox for 3 weeks. I believe I watched it every day. This experience turned me into a lifelong fan of Loretta Lynn, Sissy Spacek, Levon Helm, and Tommy Lee Jones. Story 75. The Grand Budapest Hotel. My husband is a huge Wes Anderson fan, and it was the first of his films I really got into, so it's one we hold close to our hearts. It truly affects me how it's really about Zero's love for Agatha. That's why he keeps the hotel running. The Emperor's New Groove. Just a quirky favorite that my best friend and I share. They are both huge comfort watches for me because it feels like being wrapped up in a blanket with my favorite people, my most secure connections. Plus, they are both funny. Story 76. Zorro. When I was a child, every Saturday night my local television station would screen Zorro at 10 p.m. My late father would allow me to stay up late. He'd be on the porch, smoking cigarettes and drinking black coffee. Then, at around midnight when the movie was over, he'd come back to the living room to check on me. I'd pretend to be asleep, and he'd carry me to my room upstairs. I'm feeling emotional now. Story 77. It's a bit silly, but I'm very fond of Xanadu. Although it's an objectively terrible movie, I saw it when I was a young teenager, and Olivia Newton-John was so beautiful, graceful, and charming. She struck me as everything I should aspire to be. Story 78. Pan's Labyrinth, Amelie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Stranger Than Fiction, Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Story 79. Finding Nemo. We attempted to watch it 2 days after our first daughter was born and couldn't get through the first scene without losing control of our emotions. We had to turn it off. About 5 years later, we tried again and managed to watch the entire movie. Now we laugh whenever the film is mentioned. I tell people it's the scariest horror film I have ever seen. Story 80. The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien and Dungeons and Dragons were a significant part of my life while growing up. They inspired my love for reading, improved my communication skills, and broadened my imagination. I appreciate what Peter Jackson accomplished with the films, especially the extended versions. Many scenes bring me to tears, and I never find it boring to rewatch them. Story 81. I used to rent it from the store with my brother when my mom was still alive and my grandma was in good health. Sitting at grandma's watching it was the best because it meant I could rest peacefully. No school to worry about or anything. It was before most of the trauma started, my mind was less busy, and I could actually enjoy things back then. I still watch Cars sometimes and visit grandma's, but a lot has changed in the past 15 to 20 years. Story 82. Almost Famous. I have followed several bands and gotten to know other fans over the years who attend the same shows. The film captures some of the magic that music, especially live performances, possesses, which is difficult to convey to others. The deep connections forged through the love of music are represented from various powerful perspectives, as well as how lost people can become in the intricacies of it all. It is truly impactful. Story 83. Balto, the Crow, and V for Vendetta. Balto makes me nostalgic for childhood. I love 2D animated movies. The Crow and V for Vendetta are two films that brought a tear to my eye. Story 84. Tarzan came out the year I was born, and Phil Collins is my favorite singer. I love the message of staying true to yourself even when people try to mold you into something you're not because it is more socially acceptable. Story 85. Everything Everywhere All at Once. That movie moved me in ways I was never expecting. Looking back, I knew nothing, no trailer, no synopsis, nothing. I went into it unprepared. A sad girl with issues related to my mother. Changed my life. I always recommend it, and that Oscar was well deserved. Story 86. Sat on the toilet reading this. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is the first movie that comes to mind with a personal connection today. Story 87. This might sound silly to some, but Mamma Mia is a very fun, light-hearted movie. The way the relationship between Donna and Sophie is portrayed always resonates with me and reminds me of my mother. Story 88. The Land Before Time is one of my favorite movies to this day. As the oldest child of a single parent, I have always been close to my mom. I still feel the pain of watching Littlefoot lose his mother, and it hurts just as much now as it did back then. Story 89. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Yellow Submarine with the Beatles are comfort movies for me, especially Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. My mum would rewind and play them again because I would sit through them happily. The songs comfort me and I enjoyed the stories, although the child catcher always spooked me. Yellow Submarine scared me at times, but the artwork inspired me so much that I became an artist as an adult. I was also a big fan of the Beatles as a child, along with other music that has shaped me. Story 90. Into the Wild. I wanted the nuclear family my whole life. I wanted to fit in and did what society expected me to do. Now I live on a sailboat. Story 91. As a burnout in high school, Up in Smoke was a go-to in the 1970s for quotes and a way to pass 2 hours getting high. Story 92. Bicentennial Man. It may not be deep, but I was around 10 years old when I understood the message of the movie, and it made me think like a philosopher. I still reflect on it from time to time. Story 93. Pursuit of Happiness. I watch this movie every time I get a new job or role. I use it to stay grounded and remember the struggle I faced while trying to secure a full-time position. It may be easier now, but it wasn't always easy. Story 94. This type of question is used to create a database of personal issues that can be used against us in the future. Example. I have a deep connection with the movie Titanic. It must have been so horrible to be in those engine rooms. The world slips into authorization control. Tormentors. Computer. Create a virtual simulation where the user is aboard the Titanic, trapped in the engine room. Include pain at level 10. Increase heart rate to threshold. Story 95. Mosquito Coast. Many people haven't seen this movie, but the character played by Harrison Ford was an idealistic dreamer with whom I strongly identify. It is not a happy story, I know, but I definitely saw my younger self in him. Story 96. The animated films You, The Kid Who Would Be a Bear, and Wall-E. The documentary film, The Emperor's March. Films featuring Louis de Funès, including The Big Mop, The Gendarmes, The Tough Guy, and Rabbi Jacob. Story 97. Big Fish. For whatever reason, my dad showed it to me, and it has put me at ease with many things in life, making the act of storytelling a way to live again. Story 98. Blue Streak is a Martin Lawrence heist comedy. It was my college girlfriend's favorite movie, so I have fond memories associated with it from my freshman year in the dorms. I always think of her when I occasionally see that movie. Story 99. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. No memory is attached to it specifically. It just makes me feel like a child again. Story 100. Balto is a lone dog-wolf mix trying to connect with people and demonstrate his worth. Despite being initially discarded due to distrust, he strives for acceptance and ultimately achieves it. Story 101. Don't Come For Me, but I adore it. It's a pretty weird movie, but I absolutely love the setting and all the forbidden nuances. Story 102. Dogma. I watched it for the first time during the COVID lockdown, and it made me laugh and cry so hard. I return to it whenever I feel down, and it always makes me feel better. I had the opportunity to see Kevin Smith live a few weeks ago for the 25th anniversary screening, and I was so happy. I didn't get to say anything to him, but seeing the movie in a theater with a crowd and him in person made it a special night. Story 103, Past Lives. Something about the what could have been and accepting what is resonates deeply with me. From both main characters' perspectives, I can relate to many situations in my life. The last two scenes hold me captive like no other movie I've seen, keeping me in my seat even after the film ends. Story 104. In 1917, amidst the process of sobering up, a final image of a mother and sister, though I've been informed it's actually a wife and daughter, accompanied by the words "come back to us," resonated with my own experiences of my mother and sister. Story 105. What dreams may come is soul-wrenching but so gorgeous. I hope that is what the afterlife looks like. Story 106. A goofy movie. My dad was a single parent who took me on many trips, and I was always upset about leaving my friends to go on them. He acted just like Goofy and often embarrassed me. Now that I am an adult and don't travel much, I feel regret for being ungrateful. Story 107. The Little Prince, 2015. If you haven't seen this, it will resonate with you deeply. They really excelled with this film. Story 108. Gone Baby Gone. I watched this movie when I was 16, and the ending stayed with me for a long time. It broke my heart thinking that the little girl could have had a better life if the police had not sent her back to a mother who never truly cared. Story 109. The Color Purple. I admire the strength of the characters and their perseverance during that time. It gives me strength. Story 110. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Altering memories seems intriguing until you understand that forgetting can be just as painful as remembering. Story 111. Oliver was a favorite of our family growing up. We watched it every time it was on television and had the album. Story 112. Matilda. I have seen it more times than I can count. It is such a comfort, and young Danny always warms my heart. Story 113. Cold Mountain. The way Nicole Kidman's character screamed in agony when Inman was shot resonated with me. I was going through a really difficult divorce, and her scream expressed the raw emotions I was experiencing. Story 114. Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith. I had many issues with my girlfriend, including feelings of betrayal and problems with friends, which made me feel really depressed. This built up to hate, anger, and fear just like Anakin Skywalker. Story 115. History of the World Part 1. I used to watch that movie with my dad when I was little. We still quote it to each other. Story 116. Inception. My dreams are wild and multilayered to the point I can't wake up even though I know I am dreaming. Story 117. The War with Kevin Costner, Mare Winningham, and Elijah Wood is both heartbreaking and uplifting at the same time. Story 118. A Roman Holiday. I feel like my dreams have come to life when I first watched it. But now I'm somewhat in a state of changing. I'm relating to Clueless. Story 119. The Matrix is real in a way. We live and function in a system controlled by those in power. Not robots like in the movie, but individuals at the top. You see it everywhere. In the news, politics, and more. You think what they want you to think. If you support a side in a modern classic, this side or that side issue, you are just as trapped in the system as anyone else and need to find a way out. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.